should. We should come out of the Middle East, stay out of those entanglements. Too many people getting killed. There's no solutions found in preemptive and initiating war. But no only should we bring those troops home from the Middle East, it's really time to bring the troops home from Japan, bring the troops home from Korea, bring the troops home from Europe. Let the troops spend all their money, all their income here in this country and help our economy. Some people would be concerned. They'll say, well, won't that weaken our national defense? Won't that mean there'll be more terrorism? Won't that mean that we're in much greater danger? Won't that diminish our national defense? I think all the opposite. I think there would be less chance of terrorism. I think our military would be in much better shape. I think we could save a lot more money to help our dollar, help energy prices, and help our fiscal problems here at home. There is so many advantages to this. And above all, there'd be a much better chance of having peace in the world. And how would we spread our goodness? Because I still believe we have a lot of goodness in this country. And we have good traditions. We at least at one time knew what sound money was about, and free markets and private property and contracts. Those are all great things. But how do you spread goodness around the world? I believe the only way that you can get other people to look at us and act like us is for us to set a good example so they would want to emulate it. But to decide that we're much better than they are and say that you will do it our way, we offer them two choices, and the two choices aren't very good from their viewpoint to ours. So we go over and we tell countries, well, we want you to do this. If you don't do it, you better watch out, we might start bombing you. And then the other option is, if you do exactly as we say, we'll send you more money. And I say there's a third option. Let's just offer friendship, offer trade, and offer an ability to talk with people and be diplomatic with people, and I think the whole world would be much better off. No matter what problem we come up with, whether it's the war or hunger in Africa or people who need help here at home, just in this last week, you can't imagine how many billions of more dollars have been appropriated and authorized to be spent in your name, all with good intentions. But at the same time, every dollar they spend, they either have to borrow it or create it out of thin air, which creates the very problem. This whole idea that our government has sent so many people $600 or $1,200 and they think it's going to solve the problem. Do you know that that whole benefit was probably wiped out in 1 week by the rising price of gasoline? And when they print the money or that they don't have, of course, that is the reason that the value goes down and the prices go up. Now, in 2006, we had an election which should have tipped the Republicans off that we're not on the right track and do something about it. It doesn't look like we've learned that lesson yet. So, but you would think maybe with the Republicans losing and the Democrats losing, maybe the Democrats in charge would help straighten this mess out. Well, immediately after, within a month or so, we had a supplemental bill in the early part of 2007 that had a provision in the supplemental bill that said that you cannot, this was a message to the executive branch, you cannot start bombing Iran without permission of Congress. Well, that should have gone without saying, because that's what the Constitution says. But that was deliberately removed in the middle of the night before that bill was brought to the House floor, and it wasn't even put in there by the Democratic leadership. So you wonder, what is going on here? Are there no differences between the two parties? And some days I think that is the case. We have budgetary rules, and they're supposed to restrain spending. Unless they want extra money, then they take it off the budget and they do emergency spending. So all the war financing all these years have always been emergency spending, and they're really not on budget, so the budgetary rules don't apply. So you would think maybe with change in the administration, change in control of Congress, they would put it on the budget. That has not happened. So now the president, of course, is coming back, hands out, looking for your wallets, looking to inflate the money, put the burden on you, put the burden on the middle class, and he says, well, what we need for this next year is $107 more billion to keep this war going for so many more months. So what have the Democrats done? They said, well, that's good, but you think maybe they would cut it or restrain it or not vote for it or put restriction on it? What they did was they added $50 billion more of military money on to what the president asked for. It's just, I'm there and I look at it and know these people and still, it befuddles me. I mean, what are they thinking about? What are we thinking about, and why do we allow them to get away with it is really the big issue. But not only that, one reason why they're going along with the military spending is now they're using this vehicle because it's on budget. They can break all the rules. So the Democrats went and added $20 more billion on top of the $50 billion. Then it's up to $177 billion of all the domestic spending and all of the things that they're going to do for the people, take care of people, help the poor people, give them this and give them that. But the whole thing is that the system doesn't work. It works for a while. You can fool the people for so long. You can fool the markets for so long. You can inflate the currency and people think they're getting benefits. But eventually, the very people that so many good-hearted people in Washington want to help, poor people so that they can have a house and have food and all these things, eventually they get wiped out. And that is what's happening today. Because we're being wiped out because of the deficit and the payment. And I think this is one of the reasons young people are responding to this campaign, because I recognize the bad deal you're getting. And it's time that we straighten up the mess instead of dumping it onto the next generation. Is that we could work our way out of this. We could restore some confidence if we got our budget under control. If we were able to save enough money where we literally could allow the next generation to opt out of the system. If you've lost confidence that if you're into Social Security and you don't think in 50 years you're going to get anything, I'd let you get out and I'd let you take care of yourselves. Actually, the revenue is going into the fund, and there's no fund there. It's just a transfer from the young to the old, and the retirement numbers are, swelling by leaps and bounds with the baby boomers retiring. So we have to get the money some way. Because one thing with certainty, we shouldn't raise taxes under any circumstances. You never raise taxes. Borrow anymore. Besides, we continue to borrow, the interest rates are going up, and they're starting to loan us less readily than ever before. So we shouldn't borrow anymore. That, passes the debt on to the next generation. And we shouldn't print anymore because that, perpetuates the problem. So we don't want to tax, we don't want to borrow, and we don't want to print. What are we going to do? Very simply, cut spending. And we can do that. We can do that. Come out and say, you're right, we need to do that, and you know what they offer? Let's cut medical care for children. And, you can technically argue, no, it would have been much better if we never had the government involved. But you don't need to cut medical care for children or for the elderly or the retired. You don't have to cut Social Security funds in order to get started. But what you have to do as a people, we as a people and we as a country, will have to change our policy, our foreign policy. We have to give up this notion that it's to our benefit to be the policeman of the world, and we can save not millions and not a few billions, but we can save hundreds of billions of dollars if we would only change our foreign policy.